This is the first pause for stillness and speaking in this way in quite some time. And there's something that wants to be named and talked about in relation to illness and sickness and the body's mortality, because it's a theme that won't leave this body alone, apparently. And all that can be spoken and shared in this way is what's alive here. So here you go. So let's see what wants to be said. Yeah, there's some fieriness here. In addition to a lot of pressure, from the lymphatic system. The fieriness here is not anything to do with having a virus or wounding or illnesses passing through the body, but more of an emotional spirit-based feeling around authenticity. And a fieriness around a lack of authenticity that is encountered. Particularly around hiding illness, hiding sickness, hiding the mortal limitations of living on this earth, even in everyday life, in cultural friendships and families and workplaces and communities, but also in particular spirituality. I know this is a theme that I've probably talked about a while back. Nothing that gets spoken in these moments of speaking nothing's new, but there seems to be a deepening into this. It's not a blame. Like, it's not like there's any person that the fieriness is igniting or blaming. How dare you filter this out? But more this great potential for illness and the body's limitations, disease, disability. Feels even unnecessary to put labels on them, but also paradoxically necessary because, of course, they're conditions of the body that we all experience. We none of us are unscathed. But we're often so scared of the reality of our own path, our own form. our own nervous systems that will fight tooth and nail to live when inevitably we face a threat. Inevitably, we come in contact with other people, a coughing child, cancer, lack of sleep, fatigue, mental illness from chronic stressors or adversities that are no one's fault, but get repressed and metabolized in certain ways. All of these forms of disease and illness, and it even feels helpful to point to the etymology of how we misconstrue these physical conditions, these mind-body conditions of disease as apart from the spiritual path, or distraction, or an indicator that you're not on the spiritual path, or whatever it might be. I'm not saying that bad habits or negative coping patterns where we numb and go unconscious don't contribute to disease and illness, but I adamantly feel the sacredness of when disease arises to no fault of our behaviors, just by the byproduct of our being alive on a planet, the potential to illuminate that which is truest, and not even truest, but most unwavering about us. Because everything physically can and will be wavering, because we'll die. We will die. All of us will die. And so the body encountering limitations in one capacity or the other is a reminder of that. That's not a shortcoming. And you see this in teachings, even in Jesus, of working with the blind or the lepers, or I don't remember the specifics of my Catholic studies as a child, but the heart feels and knows that the impoverished of body and form were lifted up, not as a sign of a shortcoming to him, but of an example of see how this form is shamed and cast out mistakenly. See the potential for how it shows the way, how through blindness we see more clearly in a certain sense. Of course, I'm not saying seek out illness. And of course, there's compassion that anyone who's suffering in a physical sense, I wish and celebrate ease when it arises. And paradoxically, I celebrate the clarity that arises through discomfort, dis-ease. I think disease, getting back to the etymology, is probably the most resonant label here of discomfort. This disease, the word originates from a lack of ease or a discomfort of the body, the conditions of the body, which is true. Like illness, disability, disease, it is uncomfortable. The body wants to be operating in the most efficient and whole whole to its original form way. And when it knows a greater wholeness, it struggles. There's discomfort, purely physically. The cells, the neurons, the ways of working and operating that have to adapt, there's discomfort. Great. Great. Such that getting out of our comfort zone is how we grow. Whereas the word illness actually connotates evil and badness and its origins. I'm not canceling the word illness. I don't care to police anybody because I'll use all these words all the time when I'm living, and but we can feel that conditioning of illness, like even early on in talking about my health in a spiritual sense, like all the shame around even just having a voice that's altered, or my appearance might be noticeable, like the propensity to hide and not to be a burden because the burden of the evil whatever, and like the projected belief that absence of what we see in who speaks about spirituality, in the sense of most people who speak are healthy and have the energy to speak and aren't doing child caring or caregiving, giving care to others who are unhealthy in that moment. Like we project onto that oh, that is spirituality. Spirituality looks a certain way. And that's where the fieriness here, what was coming up in the beginning of the absence of seeing that, I don't see that. And so what's alive here is to be authentic and to speak it, because I'm not seeing it, and maybe I'm not looking. And maybe I don't have the energy to look and go down the tunnels of YouTube. I'm sure someone is speaking and sharing in this way in some capacity, but by and large in our culture, the conditioning is to hide. And even going as far back again in the days of the Bible and Jesus, like being cast out, the ugly laws of illness into the last century, where people were actually fined for going out in public when they were diseased or disabled. Like that's a real part of our world to be able to acknowledge and go deeper than that. That's not resonant as true. That's resonant as fear of our limitation in the physical form. Like we will expire, and none of us is exempt. The other word that does not resonate in its etymology is health, like unhealthy. Health pointing to wholeness. And so we can reframe all of this and package all of this, but the way that we commonly talk about I'm unhealthy right now in some way indicates I'm not whole. I'm ill, I'm sick right now. And here, the fieriness is that there's nothing that's further from the truth when we're consciously contacting it, consciously meeting the impermanence of illness, like the fluctuations of every modulation in the body to as it's fighting or adapting or decaying, like letting go of a certain level of power of oh, maybe this moment, the wound is such that I am altered. This form is altered. Or maybe it's this short-term invasion of the cells that are exhausted, or maybe it's a short-term wound that's going to heal over. Like it's the outcome is not what I'm interested in, the process of what better to point you to the fluctuation of the weather patterns of being alive than illness and disease? That the mind will tell you it's solid and it's bad and it's not whole and it's evil and it's a sign of shortcoming, or fatigue that comes with it is a sign of being unproductive, or all of the other layers that we get beyond those core basic layers of really just fear of death, fear of not being enough. When we can really be with beneath the mind how much the body is doing. And again, not as I think I probably, if you've watched anything that I've created or shared any space with me around the spiritual things that are of interest and alive to me, I'm not against the mind. The mind is not separate from the body, but when the mind is threatened, it will captivate us with interpretation that makes tracking moment to moment more challenging or sticky or distracted. And none of what I feel inspired to speak about right now is about a strategy. I'm telling you how to make through when you feel sick, when you feel crappy, when you're hurting, uncomfortable. Because you are. The body knows. Body does. It's what you add to it. It's what the nervous system, the resistance to discomfort adds to disease. That's actually the worst part. And that actually prohibits us from that spiritual gift of illness. The gift of you're in the world. What a beautiful gift. So much of the disease and the illness that's been present here has been passed from little 3-year-old body to 9-year-old body to caretaker body to teacher body to like this integration of being together, and also the inherited disease that we have in a world that exploits us and requires a certain participation, that when the whole system is out of balance, the body feels that too. And so we're alive in that world as well. Beautiful. Beautiful. And the truth, as we deepen in realization to the truth, and we deepen in our tolerance, or I hesitate to say comfort, but connection with the truth, is that we see our old attachment to certain states of truth as needing to be absolute. And what I mean by that is we start to dissolve this idea that being awake and true and clear means being comfortable, means appealing to others, means fitting in or accomplishing something or getting attention, or that can be a very painful letting go, because there's so much grief in the death of that person, a person that could ever be totally okay, a person that was comfortable at times when I was comfortable, the person that thought that's possible, that's what all this is about, that's where I'm going to get. Like the grief of how much may have been invested in that and oriented around that. And within that can be love as well. the love of that that tired heart that maybe has been abandoning itself and in efforts to be something that it's not. Or the self that abandoned others in judging them as of not being spiritual enough, or this world as not being whole enough. Even the disease, the litany of diseases that are spreading through our politic and our culture and our environment, our ecosystems and our schools and our media, and on and on and on and on and on. If we see that spiritual potential for illuminating that which can never be diseased, that which can never be uncomfortable, and just the escalation of clarity. Clarity independent of conditions. Sometimes we mistake clarity for comfort. Clarity is when everything calms down and I can see straight to the bottom of the pool. Mm-mm. Clarity is seeing without sight in that metaphor. Clarity is feeling all the ripples and the waves and the turbulence that are creating noise, and knowing without a shadow of a doubt where the ground beneath lies. Free of conditions, free of fog. Clarity that doesn't depend, it's always there. It's always there. And to celebrate when there is health, and when there is, in this form, however it may be. Mainly just what's settling here as the words are settling. Is not for anything to be held on to health or illness, disease or ability of the body, but just this potential. If illness or sickness is moving through the body of yours or your loved one, that there is a spiritual potential there. And it's not about forcing yourself to be comfortable. It's about making contact with that which when everything falls apart is unwavering.